What made you suddenly lose interest in someone you were pursuing? The biggest red flag for me is pursuing someone who loves attention on themselves but is not very interested in your life. Basically drop the pursuit right there and look for someone who is just as interested in you as you are in them. This is good advice for friendships too, IMO. If you have friends who only contact you to complain about themselves but show no interest in your life, your opinions, your problems, it can really be a drain on you. There needs to be reciprocity for a healthy relationship, romantic or otherwise. Yelled at someone at a party for a miscommunication that was no one's fault. I get it, it was frustrating, but she just yelled at this woman for no reason. She disappeared for about a month and showed up looking horrible, lost so much weight I hardly recognized her. Found out that she was left $20,000 by her dad and received it. She was a crackhead and spent it all. Didn't spend a penny on her 2 young children either, just left them with her mom and went partying. Even worse, I bet she didn't share that crack with you. Shameful stuff. They started flirting with my best friend. Oof, been there. My BF told me he was in love with my best friend. Thankfully he told me at the exact time I was already planning on breaking up with him. One night stand developed into dating. Potentially serious, then I find out she's married. Then she tells me she's preggo and that her husband had a vasectomy several years earlier. Then she kinda disappears. Met girl through Tinder. Seen each other 3 to 4 times. Everything was good. Didn't suspect anything bad. She stayed the night. Great night. Wake up in the morning, empty bed. Purse and most of her clothes are still here. Get up, walk to bathroom to pee. Come back into room. She is slumped over on the floor. A belt around arm and needle on floor in front of her. WTF. I get her up. Get dressed and get out. Goodbye. I was into this girl in my friend group in the first couple months of uni. One late night, we were all in the common room in a friend's accommodation around 1 a.m. We were playing a game of truths when she got asked to rate all the guys in the friend group by attractiveness. Our group was 11 in size with 6 guys and 5 girls. She started off with the most attractive and went down the list. It hurt as she named every other guy there, and with every pause she took, I was hoping I would just be the next guy named and not the last. Except I was the last guy she named. Not only that though, shortly afterwards, the other 2 girls of the group present that night were asked to do the same, and I also ended up on the bottom of their lists too. I felt pretty awful that night and after. The other 2 girls' verdicts didn't help, but hearing I'm the ugliest in the group from the girl I liked really hurt a ton, and naturally I stopped trying after that. That is when you know you're with the wrong group of friends. Sorry that happened to you. I have been there myself. She stood me up on my 30th birthday. After she invited me out of town to celebrate. It was all good. Got myself an amazing steak dinner, and my nieces and nephews got me a chocolate cake, and they got me a Captain America shirt I still use to this day. He genuinely referred to himself as an alpha male, and then continued to tell me how much women sucked while we were at a concert with a woman opener. In software, alpha versions are unstable, missing important features, lots of flaws, not fit for public consumption. I'll pass on the alpha male. After dating a woman for a few months, I took her out for breakfast on her birthday with plans to see her again that night. She went completely off the radar, only to emerge the next day to confess that she had spent the night in jail for violating the restraining order placed upon her after assaulting her previous boyfriend. Hit the eject button pronto. Never looked back. I was completely caught off guard because she held a very prestigious job, had extensive real estate holdings, and presented as squeaky clean. Date like 2 or 3, she had to use the bathroom. Whatever, no biggie, it happens. Even stinking the bathroom up wouldn't have bugged me. Not flushing a substantially sized shit, and apparently not wiping, however, was a deal breaker. They hurt my dog. Now, I was into this guy for a while. Bigger guy. Seemed really sweet. I invited him over after we hit it off, and my dog, being a dog, came up to see this new person. He responds to this inquisitive sniffing my kicking them in the face, and seeming proud of it, saying that you have to show a mutt who's boss. I told him to get the fuck out of my house and never come back. I'm still very single, but my dogs haven't been hurt like that since. Brought a kid she never mentioned on a Tinder date. I'm 18. Went to surprise her for her birthday 3 days after she randomly showed up at my apartment saying she had broke up with her long-term boyfriend, all through high school. We kissed at my place. When I got to her dorm room to surprise her, the ex-boyfriend was in her bed, under the covers, and appeared to be naked, at least from the shoulders up. Pretty much just dropped the present I had gotten her and turned around walking away. I went to go visit a friend I knew was at the same college. I had driven an hour. He was busy writing a paper but said I should go visit his little sister who I hadn't seen in over a year. She was at the same college. He gave me directions to her dorm. 27 years later, my friend's little sister and I have 4 kids and been married over 23 years. We met online and would talk for hours on a daily basis. After 2 years he needed a place to stay, so I said he could come stay with me. It soon became clear when he arrived why I only ever saw headshots. He was morbidly obese, like 28 stone, and disabled as a result. However, by that time, there were a lot of feelings involved, and I love people for who they are, not what they look like. So we made a go of it for 2 years. In that time, I was working full-time on the phones for a charity. When I came home, he wouldn't let me have a moment's peace and quiet, which is what I needed after a stressful day at work. Instead, he had to hold my hand constantly and would talk non-stop. I mean, I get he was on his own all day, but he would also be constantly messaging while I was at work, so I had no escape. I literally became his full-time carer on top of working 45+ hours a week. I tried desperately to help him lose weight, but there was always an excuse. What pushed me over the edge was when we discussed that I wanted kids. However, he felt that my lifestyle was not healthy enough to possibly raise children. I was an average and totally acceptable weight. In that moment, it became clear that he would never change. He had the nerve to criticize me when he had done nothing to improve himself, which filled me with rage. I told him it was over and he had 2 weeks to leave. He then told me he wanted to propose and that we should have kids right away. I knocked right out of that relationship in an instant once he said that. Edit. Well, this has blown up, haha. To explain, I had not long come out of a very bad relationship when we met. This was about 15 years ago when I was in my early 20s and naive. Was it a stupid decision? Yes. However, it did teach me what never to allow in relationships again, so lesson learned. We both worked at a Hollywood video shortly after DVD rentals became a thing. That part is just context for the time period. We were both in high school but went to different ones. She was attractive and had a wicked sense of humor. We also got along pretty well. I was planning to ask her to my school's homecoming. One Saturday morning we were both on the opening shift. A severely mentally handicapped man came in asking for help with his watch. I tried to help him but the thing looked pretty busted. As soon as the door closed she let out a huge disgusted sigh and said, "God, I fucking hate R. So gross," and shuddered like someone had splashed her with something. My opinion of her dropped like a lead balloon. I found out he had been divorced 5 times by the age of 45. When he stopped talking to me after I didn't send him nudes, turns out he asks multiple girls for nudes, then sells the pictures to some of his friends. A complete human garbage, if you ask me. After the second date he said he can't wait to put a baby in me. And when I asked if we can get to know each other first, he said he doesn't have time for a 6 to 12 months courtship. He already knows what he wants. Anyway, I did let him know I'm not a womb for hire, and never talked again. Absolutely disgusting. How do some people think this is a normal thing to say is my question. I realized he was using me for favors. He was always needy, but never there when I desperately needed him. He made excuses. For everything. We could not have one conversation where he did not blame someone else for his own shit. Dropped out of college? Well, it was a stupid degree anyways. His teachers were unfair to him, specifically. Higher education as a whole is a scam. Never had a job at almost 24+ years old? Well, it's his mom's fault for not getting him used to working at a young age. Can't pay for his half of the date. His bummy friends must have ripped him off. We're playing video games and he dies? It's my fault. Our teammates' faults. The game is dumb. He's lagging. His controller died. I very quickly realized that this inability to acknowledge his mistakes or shortcomings would bleed into the relationship. I could not see myself with someone who acted that way long term, so I dipped out and encouraged him to do some real introspection. His response, of course, was that I clearly didn't like him that much and didn't try enough. Yeah, shocking. This happened to me with my ex. Every single thing was my fault. Obviously there were some that actually were, but everything? I got to where I was scared to bring anything up to her, anything that was bothering me, because it always got turned around onto me. I even caught her cheating on me and she blamed that on me too, because I wasn't doing enough for her and her kids. Afterwards I quickly realized how toxic it all was, and I'm happy to be with someone else who's the exact opposite. He was way too horny. He turned every joke or sweet convo into something sexual, which really put me off. Had a fling with a guy when I was abroad. He scolded me for putting salt on my pasta because it was unhealthy. Meanwhile, the previous night he finished an entire bottle of gin to himself. Mind your MF business. I met their friends. Insanely attracted to this girl in high school. She was smart and beautiful. She was a cellist and I was learning the violin. We had both decided religion was BS. We both really liked literature. We had tons to talk about and do together. She seemed so sweet. I felt like we were vibing. When I drove her around on our first date, she screamed at everyone on the road. Like, she rolled the windows down and leaned out the car because a dude did a complete stop at a stop sign. It was like that the entire way. Maybe she was stressed? Hangry? We ate, did a duet in the park, and went for a walk. She was perfect, witty, charming, had a good sense of humor. The first girl I was interested in that could run circles around me in a conversation. I was smitten all over again. The amount of rage on the way home had me wanting to trade my car in. Nope. His anger. I asked him a question but then was unsure if that question would make him upset, so I deleted the message. He had started reading the question when I deleted it and became inconsolably angry at me. Screaming for hours without stopping, and something just clicked in me during the middle of his yelling and I realized I hadn't loved him for some time. I felt sorry for his life situation and I never actually wanted to even date him since the beginning. Context. The question was about some kind of drama I saw in an article. I don't remember exactly what the question was since it was so long ago. I went to their house and genuinely thought, bitch, you live like this. Funny seeing this. When I was in my teen years, my mother would often storm into my room yelling about how much of a pigsty it was, and she would say, "No man would want to marry you if you were this messy." I thought she was being dramatic, but maybe she was partially right. He was being really touchy-feely in front of my friends and his friends, and he knew that made me uncomfortable. I was telling him to knock it off with increasing seriousness. He finally went too far and I yelled at him, "Stop." And I spent the next 15 minutes trying to cheer him up because he felt bad and was all mopey and shit. We were at my place, so I couldn't just leave. The whole situation killed the vibe. Nothing ever happened, but I realized pretty suddenly that he felt the need to make every conversation about him and tried to dominate conversations about any given subject by pulling up some so-called expertise he had on the subject. He couldn't take being shut down when he was talking bullshit and didn't like when someone was more knowledgeable than he was. I was raised by a narcissist, so I was kind of weirded out by how I didn't notice it before, but when I eventually did, I knocked out of that situation so hard it was kind of funny. Her place was messy the first time I visited, but it was short notice, so I didn't think too much of it. The toilet was dirty, dishes all over the kitchen and in the sink, clothes all over the floor in bedroom, living room unkempt, bits of whatever on the sheets and carpet. Went over again a week later, with plenty of notice, and it wasn't any better. I lost interest because I couldn't feel comfortable in her mess. I can forgive messes once in a while, but I like a tidy home. Also, I clean up before I have someone over, even just friends, so it kind of felt inconsiderate of her. Realizing that the warm feeling I got around them came from liking their affection, attention rather than out of love, and not being selfish enough to try using them for my own gain. His toenails were horrendously overgrown. This was back in high school, but 2 guys asked for my number on the same night. This was incredibly strange for me because I was an introvert and was never really noticed by people. They were polar opposites, too. One was a tall, lanky emo boy who played bass in a band. I'd gone with my friend to watch them play and he asked for my number. I thought he was cute and he was my type, so I was stoked. The second was a stocky wrestler kind of guy. Taller than me but not very tall, short blonde hair and more shy. Over the next few days I talked casually with them both. The emo guy was the most boring conversationalist I've ever encountered. I'm a naturally bubbly and talkative person when I get to know people, so his way of speaking was off-putting. It was mostly texting, and his responses were lackluster, often monosyllabic and seemingly uninterested. Even though I found him attractive, I stopped responding and it just fizzled out. He's still bumming around our hometown doing the same things he was a decade ago. The second guy was incredibly intelligent, engaging in conversation, and sweet. He wasn't my type at all, but I found myself liking him more as time went on. We eventually started dating, and next week on the 24th, we will be celebrating 12 years together. We've been married for almost 6. We have a 4-year-old daughter, a house, and overall a lovely little life. Crazy how things work out. On my dating journey, I came across 2 different men who seemed proud of the fact that they barely saw their children. Instant no for me. Another guy had shockingly bad breath. She never loved me the way I loved her. In this world, even if you try to be the best version you can be and you naturally have the same interests and lifestyle as someone else, it doesn't mean they will acknowledge you as an equal. Many people are too lost in themselves to notice that someone close loves them for who they are. I've come to accept that it's better to love those who at least want me around than those who don't know what they want and fail to realize that I actually did love them. My daughter had surgery for a compound fracture. A guy she had only just started seeing dropped by, and while they were hugging, she farted. He didn't call again. When she told me why he hadn't been around, I literally fell out. I still bring this up. We both got a big kick out of it. She sent me a picture of her sucking off 2 dudes when I asked if she going to be late to our date. Yes. She couldn't keep her word. Anytime we agreed on something, she'd always try to get out of it. That got annoying fast. Oof. I've got the winner for this thread right here. I was once with this guy, things were going great. Then just as things were starting to get physical, he told me he was HIV positive. Which, credit to him for doing the right thing, and with the right precautions, it wouldn't have been a total deal breaker. Within 2 minutes of that revelation, he told me he hated using condoms and would absolutely refuse to use one with me. Could not nope out of that situation fast enough. Bad breath and being too handsy too soon. I had a crush on this guy friend at the time. Back in 11th, 12th grade, he rejected me and started dating a friend of mine. She didn't know that I liked him, so no fault to her. Then afterwards he would drunk text me and send me eggplant pics. He said that he was embarrassed by me liking him, but he was always curious about what it would be like to sleep with a black girl. So, he never actually liked me for me. He saw me as a quest of sorts. Needless to say, I don't speak to him anymore. And my self-esteem was crushed by that, among other things. The way he spoke to his mom. You don't have to love her like I love my mom, I get that. But when he belittled and berated her when she was too senile to argue back was disgusting and infuriating. She was way too clingy. I realized I was done with her when she made me miss out on important life events, weddings, funerals, family get-togethers, etc., to be with her, and she was very controlling. Been single ever since 2019. Okay, story time. I was dating this guy for a few months. It was going pretty well. He owned a business. It was a franchise of a business started by his brother. The brother charged people a franchise fee each year, but for his brother and his best friend, he said don't worry about it. Every year the guy the first was seeing and the best friend would go in together on an awesome Christmas present for the brother, instead of paying this franchise fee. So the guy I'm seeing and the best friend decide to get the brother a pinball machine. The friend said buy one, and I'll give you half the money. He finds one for $1,000. He tells the best friend he paid $5,000. His best friend, since he was 2 years old, Sent him $2,500. The guy I'm seeing literally made money off his friend, and was bragging about it to me. I was so disgusted I dumped him on the spot. He said he wanted to lock me in his basement so I wouldn't leave. When I was about 18, I this guy over to hang out one night. He got piss-ass drunk, passed out on my dad's favorite chair, then puked all over himself. Never saw him again.